with Power Pivot, which is the data modeling technology, where we learned what exactly a data model is and why it should be created. So basically, data modeling is the process of analyzing and defining all the different data a business collects and produces, as well as the relationships between these data. And the data model is the structured and logical organization of the tables that we already have and the relationships that exist between these tables. Okay, so we are going to basically create these data models and also establish relationship between the tables that we basically, or the data models that we just create. And to create the data model, we'll be using a concept called as the multidimensional star schema. So star schema refers to the logical description of data sets where data is divided into fact table and dimension tables, right? So let me just share my screen once. Okay. Yeah. So fact table contains the actual information. So where's the presentation here? Yeah. So fact table contains the actual information, right? And the dimension tables contain the related information. And in our case, we have one single table here. Single table here called as population 2010-2040. So when we apply the star schema, essentially we'll be creating four tables, three dimension tables, and one central table called as fact population. So in the dimension tables, they are all related to separate aspects, right? So the first dimension table called as dim region is with respect to the location details. Dim age table is with respect to age related information, and dim gender is with respect to gender related information, right? So here in the dim region, so today, after today's class, I'm going to share this presentation. Okay, so I have a couple more slides which we have to go through. So after that, I will basically add a third row here. A third column here. So along with country ID and country, the dim region table should also have a column called as region, which has the continent information, right? Such as whether a particular country is in which continent, right? Afghanistan is in which continent, India is in which continent, and so on, right? So that is the information that the third column will have, that is called as region. Now, in yesterday's session, I mentioned that we will be replicating the existing table that we already have, right? So we need four tables. So we'll be replicating, or we'll be creating copies of the existing table. Now in Power BI, there are two ways of creating a copy, right? So the first way is basically the reference option, and the second way is the duplicate option. Now, yesterday we learned about the reference option. So when you create a copy or when you replicate a table using the reference option, you will be basically creating a direct link or a direct, a direct connection between the original table and the replicated table. So when you create a direct link or when you create a direct connection between the two tables, whatever changes that you make in the original table will have the same effect, or will have or the same change will be applied on the replicated table as well. And that is what we saw yesterday, right? So we changed the data type of country ID column in the original table from whole number to text, and the same change took place, or basically the same change was applied to the country ID column in the in the replicated table using the reference option. Okay, so if I basically remove it now, okay, if I remove the last step where we changed the data type of country ID column from the applied steps, so basically the same change will also be applied to the replicated data set. Okay, so that is what the reference option does. When you replicate a table using the reference option, you are basically creating a direct connection or a direct link between the original table and the replicated table. And also in the original table, whatever steps that you see in the applied step section, those steps will not be available in the applied step section in the replicated table. So that is the second characteristic of the reference option. Okay, so in here, this is the original table, right? Population 2010-2040. You can see all these applied, I mean, all these steps in the applied steps section, right? So if you go to the replicated data set, which was basically created using the reference option, you will not see any of the applied steps that were available in the original data set. So that is the second characteristic of, or basically that is the result of using the reference option. Now notice that in population 2010-2040, the country ID is right now back to its original, data type. That is
Yeah, but
a whole number. Yeah.
yesterday you said that when we use reference,
Mhm.
when the original data set certain changes are carried out in original data set,
Hmm.
then it reflects in the new data set, right?
Yeah.
So ideally, if you change it in the original data set, it should reflect in the referred data set.
Yeah. So that is what we saw, right? So basically, in population 2010-2040,
So now
we
you are
had
telling that it is not reflecting.
no,
If
the
it is
applied steps, whatever steps are present in the applied step section, those will not be
okay,
present here. Yeah.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so right now we have changed the data type of country ID to its original data type, that is whole number. So if you wait, I mean, when the data loads here, basically you will see that the country ID column will be changed back to, a whole number here. Okay, so that is what happens when you use the reference option. Now there is the second option called as duplicate. So in duplicate, you are not creating a direct connection or a link between the original table and the the replicated table. You are simply creating a copy of the table. That's it. You're not creating a link, you're not creating a direct connection or any of that sort. You're basically creating a copy of the original table. That's it in duplicate. You're basically duplicating the data set or duplicating the table. So when you're not creating a direct link or a a direct relationship, whatever changes that you make in the original query or the query one, it doesn't have an effect, or changes in query one have no effect on query two. Meaning whatever changes that you make in the original table will not have an effect on the on the replicated data set. And that is the first characteristic. So this is opposite to the reference option. And the second characteristic is that whatever whatever steps that you see in the applied steps, right? If we go back to Power Query Editor, yeah. So right now we can see that in the reference data set, or basically in the replicated data set, that was created using the reference option. You can see that now the country ID says 123 because we had made the change in the original data set, right? So let us create a copy of population 2010-2040 using the duplicate option now. Okay. So right click on population 2010-2040 and select the option duplicate. Now here you can notice that whatever steps that we had taken in the original data set, they are all available in the applied steps section. Okay. So you can see that it is the same here, right? So the last applied step was filtered rows, and the last step here is also filtered rows. So basically you're creating a copy or duplicating whatever applied steps that were available in the original query. The same will be available in the in the duplicate data set as well. So that is the difference between using the reference and the duplicate options to replicate a particular table or to create a copy of a particular table. Now if you create a copy of a table using the reference option, you should be careful not to make any changes, right, in the original query, because if you make even a single change, the same change will be reflected in the replicated table also. If you are not making any changes, it doesn't matter which option you select. Okay, if you are not making any changes in the original query or in the original table, you
Rather, we duplicate itself now. Why reference then?
no, so reference is useful when you basically have a particular change that you want to make in the original query, and you want the same to be reflected in the replicated table also. So that requirement might be uh, you know um, there might be a case where that is a requirement. Okay, so that is why Power BI has provided us the option with the reference the reference option here. Okay, so right now in our case we want to create we want to replicate the tables to create the dimension tables and the central table or the fact table. So in here, we are not bothered about making any changes in population 2010-2040. So you can either select the reference option or the duplicate option. It doesn't matter. In our case, it doesn't matter. Okay. But make sure that you do not change anything in the population 2010-2040 because in case you replicate a table using the reference option, and by mistake, if you make any changes in the original data set, the same will be reflected in the replicated data set also that was created using the reference option. Okay, but in our case, I'm just going to inform you that we are not going to make any changes to this particular original data set here. Okay. So that is the difference between using the reference and the duplicate option. Okay, in our case, you can select either of the options because we are not going to make any changes in the original query or in the population 2010-2040 original data set. So you can either select the reference option or the duplicate option. It is left to you. Okay, so but I will be using both. Okay, so that you learn of both the options. Okay, you can select either the reference or the duplicate option. It doesn't matter. Okay. Now coming back to the applying the star schema to our course project here. So basically, first we'll be creating the dimension tables, right? So in the dim region table, you have 3 columns. So one column is missing, but the third column is called as region. Okay. So right now we already have country ID and country, right? So if you go back to this, okay, so we'll be working with this data set here, population 2010-2040, the second one here. Okay, so first let us rename the file so that we know which dimension table we are creating. Otherwise, if you have this nomenclature here, it gets very confusing, right? So which dimension table are we exactly creating? So in the second population 2010-2040 file, rename it to dimension region. Okay, dim dash region, so that you know that we are using this table to create the dimension region table. Okay, so in the dimension region table, if you go back to the presentation, we have 3 columns. I mean, again, apologies for not including the region column here. I will include it and then share it in the WhatsApp groups. Okay, so we have 3 columns to create in the dim region table. If you have a closer look, we already have the first 2 columns, right? Country ID and country, but we do not have the third column. So we do not have the third column, the region, which holds the continent information. And even if you notice in the original queries or in the source queries, we do not have any columns that has the continent level data or the continent values, so to say. So remember, along with the 3 queries that I had shared in the WhatsApp groups, right? When I shared the data sets, along with the 3 files, I also shared a 4th file called as codes. So we will be utilizing this codes data set to create the third column in the dim region table. Okay. So open the codes data set now. Okay, open the codes file now. Okay, I'll just explain a little bit about the data now. So this is basically the data taken from, or basically the data fetched from the United Nations, where we have 5 columns: CC, A2, A3, the hash sign or the pound symbol, and the name here. So CC is nothing but the continent code. So continent code is nothing but the abbreviated form or the shortened versions of the continents. So AS is Asia, EU is Europe, AN is Antarctica, AS is Africa, OC means Oceania. Okay, Oceania is nothing but the Australian continent. So Australian continent doesn't have only the country of Australia. It has several other countries, right? Such as New Zealand, Fiji, and so on. So United Nations refers the Australian continent as Oceania. So the short form of Oceania is OC. So EU is already Europe. We have already covered that. NA is North America and SA is South America. So we have 7 continents in the world, right? So basically, that information is present in the column that says CC. It means continent code. So A2 is basically 2-level abbreviation of the country. So Afghanistan, the 2-level abbreviation is AF. A3 is basically the 3-level abbreviation, right? AFG. Pound symbol, or basically the hash column here, is the country ID, right? If you go back to the data here, you can see that Afghanistan is 4, Albania is 8, and so on. The same is applied here, right? So 004 is the country ID of Afghanistan, 008 is the country ID of Albania, and the name here is the full name of the country, right? So Afghanistan, the full name of Afghanistan is Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. right? If you come to, let's say, Cambodia, so Cambodia is referred to as Kingdom of Cambodia, and India, I think it should be Republic of India, right? So yeah, Republic of India, right? So this basically, this column has the full names of the countries, right? So that's it, because it has been this particular file or this particular data is fetched from the United Nations. Okay, so we'll be utilizing this file in order to create the third column called as region in the dim region table. Okay, so before we connect to the data set, we have some deletion of columns in the dim region table. If you notice, in dim region, we already have country ID and country. So we do not need the rest of the columns here. Okay, we do not need the year, age group, min, gender, and population columns. So we can delete it. Now, to delete columns in Power Query Editor, you have multiple ways. So you can select whichever method you are comfortable with. I am going to select the choose columns option. Okay, so we are in the dim region table. Okay, make sure to be in the dim region table. Okay, otherwise
Sorry,
you'll be
Satya, how you got this dim region? In what click you got this dim region table?
No, I just renamed the file. So
Oh,
we
okay.
had, yeah, we had replicated the data set, right?
Mm,
I just renamed it. That's it. Yeah. So you
okay.
could right click and select rename, or you can select the data set and rename it in the right section of the screen here in the properties.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. So now we already have country ID and country. All we need is a third column called as region, which has the continent information. So we do not need the rest of the columns here, right? We do not need the other 5 columns, so to say. Okay. So we can delete it from the dim region table. So to delete a particular column or multiple columns, you have several options, right? So I am going to use the choose columns option. You can select you can opt whichever method you are comfortable with. Okay, so I go to choose columns and deselect the columns except country ID and country. So I am going to deselect all the other 5 countries because we want country ID and country, right? So I'm going to retain these 2 columns and going to deselect all the other columns and click on OK. Excuse me. Yeah. So now once we delete the columns, we can connect or we can import the codes file here, okay, or the codes data set here. So let's wait for the confirmation that we have deleted the columns here. Okay.
Anaga, generally Power BI takes this much of a time to
No. So because this is a free version, right? Power BI Desktop is is a free of cost tool. So and since we have like I think close to 250,000 rows, it will take a little bit of time. Okay. But when you work in organizations, they always make sure that you are working with Power BI Pro, which the same issue you will not face in Power BI Pro because it's a paid version, right? So they have a lot of improvements. Yeah, anyway, so right now we have deleted the all the other columns except country ID and country. Now let us import the codes data set or connect to the codes data set. So basically you repeat the same steps, right? You go to new source, right? In the home menu, you click on new source. And now we already know the codes data set is of the file type. It's a notepad file, meaning it's a text file or a .txt file. Okay. So you click on the option that says text/CSV. Okay. Then you click on the codes dataset and click on open. Now here notice that since it's a notepad, you do not have the option to create columns, such as, of how you can create it in the CSV or the Excel file, right? In Excel or CSV file, you have clear distinction between the columns, but here they have used a blank space here, right? There is a blank space so that you clearly, you get the different columns here, right? You get a clear distinction between the columns here, right? They have used a blank space here. So let us go back to the Power Query editor. Now, when you connect to a CSV file or a text file, you get a preview window here, right? That we have already seen. But here, what is happening? Instead of 5 columns, it is only considering 2 columns here. So the first column is the CC column here. And the second column is right now is a mashup of A2, A3, the hash column and the name column here. This is not what we want. We want 5 columns. right? Because we have 5 columns here. But here what they have done, they have used a blank space to differentiate the columns here. And
How did you extract, Naga? How did you extract?
sorry, I just connected to the data set here.
New source. Okay.
New source and text/CSV.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now the issue is with respect to delimiter here. Okay, so here the delimiter is right now in a fixed width and 0.3 here. So we have to change it. Okay, we know that there is a blank space between the columns. So let us try it with the space delimiter first. Okay, so in the delimiter window, select the space option and let us see if something changes. So right now what is happening? All the data is coming in one column. We don't need that. We want 5 separate columns, right? One for CC, A2, A3, hash, and name columns. Okay. So if we changed the, we tried changing the delimiter to space, it did not work. So let us change it to tab now. Okay, a tab. So when we change it to the tab, we are getting the desired result here. So CC is a separate column, A2 is a separate column, and so on, right? So this is what we want, right? This is the column structure we want for our codes data set. So when you connect to the codes data set in the preview window, make sure to select the delimiter as tab. Okay, make sure to
By
select the
any
delimiter.
chance, can we able to merge 2 column into one in this? For
Sorry,
example,
could you repeat it?
Can you in time can we merge 2 columns into one? For example, date and time. Sometime it comes in one column, and sometime the date and time gets up. Date and time. So like that, can we able to do it? Can we able to append this 2 columns into one?
So you'll be able to merge basically 2 columns into one in Power Query Editor. So that's what you're asking, right? So you have the date column and the time column separately, but you want to merge them, right? You want to merge them as a single column. Yes, you can basically use the concatenation of operator. So that I will come back. I will come to it when we cover the DAX part. Okay. So basically you'll be able to concatenate the values or combine the values in 2 columns and merge them as one column. Yeah, you can do that.
Anaga, one more doubt.
Yeah.
The data type detection we are there it is shown as based on first 200 rows. So if we do like this, it is applicable for only for the first 200 rows, or it will be applicable for all the rows?
No, it will be applied for all the rows. So the first 200 rows is basically for the data type detection. Okay, so what kind of data type is for each column? Right, so you can change it to the entire data set, but basically the preview window has information for the first 200 rows, but this change will be applied for all the rows. Yeah, so whatever change that we made here, the delimiter will be applied for all the rows. Okay, so make sure to select the delimiter as tab. So you will see that we have 5 different columns now, and we can click on OK. So now we have some cleaning work to do in the codes data set, right? So you can see that.
Yeah, can we distinguish between duplicate data and reference data? Like we have duplicated this population 2010 40 3, right? And we have reference DIM region.
Yes, exactly.
How can we distinguish it?
So the easiest method is to look at the applied step section. Okay, so the DIM region was created using the reference option. So if you look at the applied step section right now, we have removed the other columns. We have removed the other columns now. So we are able to see the applied step here. But if you go to the original query, that is population 2010-2040, you can see that there are all these applied steps here, right? So when you create, when you replicate a table using the reference function, the applied steps function will be practically empty. But in the population 2010-2040, the third data file, the third data set, you can see that the applied steps is basically whatever that was available in the original query. So that is one way of finding out whether you have used the, the reference or the duplicate option. This is the easiest way to find out.
Okay, thank you, Anaga.
Yeah, okay. So let us come to the codes data set now. We have connected to the codes data set. We have 5 columns now, right? But we quickly find out, you can quickly make out that the first row should in fact be the column header, right? CC, A2, A3, the hash symbol and the name, they shouldn't be the first row, but in fact they should be the column header. So which option should we use now to basically shift the first row as the column headers? Can anyone tell me?
use first row as headers.
Exactly. So we just click on the option that says use first row as headers. So it will be available in the transform section. Okay, in the home menu, it will be available in the transform section. So you click on the use first row as headers. So right now we have basically promoted the first row as the column headers. Okay. Now you can see that in the column profiling bar here for the A3 pound and name columns, you can see that there are empty rows here, right? So there is a red bar here. Along with the green bar, you also see there is a red bar for these three columns. So if you hover to the column profiling bar, it is saying that we have 2 empty rows. So right now we have in total we have 264 rows here. Okay, so you need not change the column profiling based on the entire data set, because we have only 264, which is less than 1000. So you can be in this view where the column profiling is based on top 1000 rows. Okay, so right now what is happening, out of 264 rows, 262 is valid, whereas 2 is empty or blank. So we can filter it out. Now there are two ways to deal with blank fields, right? You can either select the option provided by Power BI, or you can manually deselect the blank values here. Okay, so you can choose either of the options. I'm going to select the first option, where I will hover to this column profiling bar and select the option that says remove empty. So now we have cleaned the data set now. So or we have filtered out the blank rows. So now we can see that we have 100% valid data, right? Where we have filtered out the blank rows present in the codes data set. Okay. Now, just a minute, guys. I'll have a sip of water. Okay, just give me a minute. Yeah. So now we have sort of cleaned the codes data set, or we have removed the blank rows. Okay, now let us come back to dim region table now. Right now we have deleted all the other columns except country ID and country. And now we are able to see each country is specified twice here. So the reason was because of the gender column, right? One row was for male and one row was for female. So right now we do not have that information, right? We have gotten rid of the gender, or basically all the other columns except country ID and country. So now there is no need for us to retain this particular structure where we have 2 occurrences of each country, right? Or basically multiple occurrences of each country. Now we don't need to retain this particular structure because we do not have the gender or the population data now. Okay, so this will be considered as a duplicate data now. Okay, because you can see that Afghanistan is specified twice, or basically more than once. Albania is specified more than once. So this will become duplicate data. So let us get rid of this duplicate data now. Okay, so how can I get rid of the duplicate data, or how can I remove the duplicate rows, so to say?
Another,
Now
but
there are,
when we took the region file, it was only singular, right?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
When we created a new file called region, it was only singular, right? How did it become multiple?
No, so because we created a copy of this particular table, right?
Okay,
so
we took a copy of that. Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's a duplicate of that.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a reference, but still, yeah, you can consider it to be a duplicate. Yeah, you can call a copy. Yeah.
Okay.
So right now, what we need to do is we need to get rid of the duplicate values here, right? So either in the country ID column or the country column, because these two columns are related to one another, right? Because the country ID 4 is for Afghanistan only. Country ID 32 is for Argentina only. So we can choose either columns, right, to remove the duplicates. So when you remove duplicates in one column, essentially that particular row will be removed, right? So that particular row will be removed. So you can choose the country ID column or the country column. It doesn't matter. Now, how exactly can I remove the duplicates? There are two options. One is to right click on either of the columns. Okay, right click on either of the columns and select the option remove duplicates. Or the second option is select either of the columns. Okay, select either of the columns, go to remove rows and select the option remove duplicates. So what it does, it removes the rows containing duplicated values in the currently selected columns. So it just doesn't remove the values, duplicated values in the selected column. It removes the entire row, right? It removes rows containing duplicated values. So that's why that's why I said that it doesn't matter which column you select, because it will be removing the entire row here that contains the duplicate values. So now you have two options. You can select either of the options. Okay, you can either right click on any of the columns here and select remove duplicates, or you can select either of the columns, go to remove rows and select remove duplicates. Okay, so let us do that. So right now I have used the remove rows option and remove duplicates button. Okay, where I have selected the country column. You guys can try right clicking on the country ID column and selecting the remove duplicates option. Okay. So in the next step, what we'll do, we'll remove a couple of columns in the codes data set as well. Yeah. So right now we have gotten rid of the duplicate rows or duplicate values in the dim region table. And right now, if you can see that in the left bottom of the screen, you can see that we now have only 199 rows, meaning we have data for 199 countries. Okay. So that is what we did basically by removing the duplicates. Okay. Now let us come back to the codes data set now. Okay. Now what we will be doing, we'll be utilizing the codes data set to create a new column in the dim region called as region column here, right? So basically we'll be utilizing the concept of merge queries now. Okay, we have looked at the append queries. So append queries is nothing but union, which basically combines data sets of the same structure. The same structure meaning the column names and the column position should be the same. The only difference is the time aspect or the time period. So in here, we'll be utilizing the merge queries. Basically, we'll be combining these two tables, right, in order to create the third column now. So the codes data set has the CC column now, right, or basically the region information. And this is right now in the form of the abbreviated versions, right? We do not have the full names of the continents here. We only have the abbreviated versions, AS, EU, AN, AF, OC, and so on. But we need full names. Before we do that, we have to remove some columns from the codes column here. Okay, so notice that in the dim region table, we have country ID and country. And in the codes table, we have CC, which we need. A2 and A3, we do not need. Because in dim region, we already have the full names of the countries, right? Or basically the, the names of the countries. So we do not need the abbreviated versions. It doesn't make sense to have the abbreviated versions, right? When you already have the full name, you do not need the abbreviated versions. So we are going to delete A2 and A3. And also we are going to remove the name column, because again, we already have the country column, which has the names of the countries. So it doesn't make sense to, retain this particular column in the codes data set. Now I told you we'll be using the merge queries function. So what the merge queries function, you basically merge two tables based on a common column. And the common column between dim region and codes, can anyone tell me? Just by looking at the data sets. Can anyone tell me which is the common column between the codes data set and the dim region tables?
Country
ID.
Exactly, it's country ID, right? So country ID is the name of the column in dim region, but when I come to codes data set, it is the hash column or the pound symbol column here, right? So we will be using this column, right? We'll be using this column to basically
even country is similar, right?
Yeah, country is similar, but here the values differ, right? So in codes data set, it is Afghanistan, Islamic Republic of. But in case of dim region, it is just Afghanistan. So we cannot use it. Yeah. So basically we'll be changing the data type of the pound column here. So that is the next step here. So right now we need to remove A2, A3 and name column from the codes data set because it is not needed, right? Because we already have the information in the dim region. All we need is the continent information available in the codes data set. And when we merge these two tables, we'll be borrowing that information from the codes data set and placing it in the dim region table. Okay, so let us come back to the codes data set and remove A2, A3 and name columns. Okay, so I have selected the name A2, A3, A2, A3 and name columns. I will go to remove columns and select remove columns option. Now, there is another change that we have to make in the codes data set. That is with respect to the positioning of the columns. Now, the logic of how join works is that the matching columns between the tables you want to merge, right? So the common column or the matching column should be in both the tables, or basically and if you want to merge dim region with codes data set, you have to make sure that the hash column or the pound symbol column should also be the first column. So we need to shift the pound symbol column to the first position. So you just drag it to the left of the CC column. Okay, you can just left click on the pound on the hash column and just drag it. Or there is even a simple method here. Okay, so let's say this is the data you have. Select the pound symbol column or the hash column. Okay, go to transform, and in the any column of the ribbon section, you have this move option here, right? So you can just select either the left or the beginning option. Okay, you can select to the beginning and it will be shifted to the beginning of the data set. Okay, so that is how you can move columns in Power BI.
Naga, how did we replace this?
Replace meaning? So we just deleted A2, A3 and name columns.
No, so okay, so we are working in a different file. We are not working in the dim region. Okay.
No. We are working in the codes data set here.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now we have deleted A2, A3 and name columns from the codes data set, and also we have shifted the hash column to be the first column now. Okay. Now the next step is to change the data type of the hash column here. Okay, because we know that they are all whole numbers here, right? 004, 008, 010 and so on. They're all whole numbers, right? So let us change the data type of hash column to a whole number. Now, as soon as we do that, we see that there is this red bar in the column profiling bar. Okay, so let us have a look at it. So basically out of the 264 rows, 258 is, sorry, out of 262 rows, 258 is valid, whereas 4 rows are empty. Now let us have a look at what exactly that empty rows are. Okay, so deselect all the values in the hash column and select only the null values and click on OK. So basically what is happening here is for these continents, right? For these continent codes, that is Oceania and Asia, there are no countries that have been assigned. Okay, there are no countries assigned or country codes assigned for these continents. Okay, for these continents. Now let us not remove the empty rows as of yet. Okay, let us not remove the null values, or basically the null values from the pound column as of yet. Okay, as of yet. So let us select all the values now. Okay, let us select all the values. Let it be there. Okay, so right now this is an internal bug in Power BI, right? So where the column profiling bar is entire red here, right? So we have selected all the values, but it is still only considering the empty values here. So you just change the view now. Okay, so click on any of the tables here and come back to the codes data set. Okay, so then you will be able to see the original column profiling bar here. Now let us not remove the blank, let us not remove the null values from the pound symbol yet. Okay, so we need it for when we go deep into the the dim region tables, we will need it. Okay, we will need it. Now
the one doubt there,
Yeah.
So this is only for a particular column which has that error. So if it
Yes.
is a multiple columns or rows which has error, then how would we filter it? I mean, we have to do it one column, I mean, manually each, or how is it?
No. So right now you're saying that the blank, I mean, the null values is with respect to only the, the hash column. But
Correct.
what if you had that null values in the CC column also, right?
Yes.
So you just filter out in one column, right? So when you filter out one column, similar to Excel, it has an effect on the other columns also. I mean, that is what we did in, the beginning of the classes here, right? So in population 2020-2029, sorry, I'll take a better example here. Yeah, population 2030-2040, we basically filtered out, the null values, right? We basically filtered out sorry, I think this is no data here. No, why is it not showing? I need to refresh it here. So basically, that's what we did in the beginning of the sessions here, right? Where we filtered out the null and blank, or basically the null or blank rows in one column, and the other columns also had this null or blank rows. So it automatically got filtered out
Altogether.
Yeah, altogether. So that is what happens in when you filter out one column, the rows will basically, right?
But
So
only
the rows
if you
will
select all the columns, this will happen, or I mean.
No, you can filter out in only one column, right? You can filter out the blank or the null values in one column. And if there are any null values or blank values present in the other columns, that will also be automatically filtered out. So that is how the filter works in Microsoft Excel and essentially in Power BI also.
Same thing like in Excel also. So that's what I asked. If, for example, if in one column, if there is a null value, say in row 4 or 5, and if there is a null value in 7 or 8 in other column, actually. So in that case, we need to manually do in both the columns?
No, it's not necessary.
Excel, it is the case, right? You said it is similar to Excel. That's why, I mean, we are
so filtering one column will have the same effect on the other columns also.
No, in Excel, we have to do it manually in each column.
No, not necessary.
No, already you are doing Excel. Even in Excel also, any one column you do, automatically it will reflect another column.
Exactly, yes. Even that applies to sort also, right? So basically, in Excel also, if you sort one column,
that works correct. What you're saying is correct. But null, does it disappear in all the columns?
Yes, it does. I mean, that is what we did in, in the beginning of the Power BI session, right? Where we filter out the...
Okay, null is different from blanks.
Okay. Yeah, null is
I
different.
think Karthik, you misunderstood. Even I asked the same thing. For example, null is there in column A. Okay, number one column, you have null value. And you are filtering that null value. But subsequently, the null value will be filtered out in all the other column. But there is no guarantee that the column 2 and 3 will also have the null value in a different row.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So now let us retain these, the empty values here, okay? Because I'm going to come back to this, okay? Don't remove it from the hash column here as of yet, okay? As of yet. So we are going to need it, okay? So let it be like this, okay? Let it be like this. Now, our job, did anyone have a question?
Yeah. So in the code set, we have 262 rows, but ideally we should have like 199, right? For 199 countries.
Yeah. So exactly. So what is happening here is basically, I mean, I was going to come back. So basically, you can see that Armenia, Azerbaijan, they are specified twice here because some parts of Azerbaijan are considered to be in the in the European continent, and some parts of Azerbaijan are considered to be in Asia. So that is the same case in Armenia also. And if you come below, or if you come to the bottom of the data set here, there are some countries. There are some countries which doesn't have these doesn't have a country status here, right? The disputed territory, the Iraqi Saudi Arabian neutral zone, the United Nations neutral zone, and Spratly Islands. All these are not officially recognized countries of officially recognized countries by the United Nations. And there are multiple occurrences, right? Even Turkey. Some parts of Turkey are considered to be in...
still live there actually. Yeah, in Turkey you see, it is part of Europe and Asia as well.
Exactly.
And disputed land also.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are people living this, but these 4 rows here, these are not recognized as countries or sovereign states of the world. So that is why you are seeing 262 rows here instead of 199, because there are several countries which are appearing twice here, because some are considered to be in, some parts are considered to be in one continent and the other considered to be as a part of the other continent. So that is why you are seeing 262 rows here. Okay. Yeah. So right now, keep the blank rows, or sorry, the null values in the hash column. So right now, our job is to basically have a third column called as region, which has the continent information. Now the codes dataset has that information, right? But it is in the form of the abbreviated versions, right? AS, EU, AN, AF. It is better to have the full names, right? Instead of AS, we should have Asia. Instead of Europe, we should have EU. Sorry, instead of EU, we should have Europe. Instead of AN, we should have Antarctica, right? So it is better to have the full versions of these abbreviated forms of the continent codes here, so to say, the CC. So what we can do, we can create we can manually create a table now. Okay, so all we have done right now is connected to the existing tables or existing data sets. Right now, what we are going to do, we are going to create a manual table here. Okay, so that we can manually type the full versions of these continent codes here. Okay, now we have 262 rows in the codes dataset, and it is virtually, I mean, it is not impossible, but it will take a lot of time to manually enter the values for all the 262 rows, right? So what we can do, we can just remove the duplicates from the CC column now. Okay, so AS is appearing more than once, EU is appearing more than once, so they're all considered duplicates. According to Power BI, the CC column has duplicate values now, right? Because all these values are appearing more than once. So what we can do for the time being, we can remove the duplicate values from the CC column. So right click on the CC column and select the option remove duplicates. So we will be left with only 7 rows, because there are only 7 continents in the world, right? 7 unique continents. So only the unique values will be retained now.
But one doubt. So the country code also will change, right? For
it will be
for
changed.
AS, there are so many country codes. Here, when we do like this, only 4 have the.
So this is only for
occurrence as the okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry for interrupting. So basically, this is only for copying these 7 values. Okay, so we'll be copying these 7 values and creating a table now. Okay, we'll be creating a table. So we'll remove it from the applied steps. Okay, so in the next couple of steps, we'll come back to the original structure. Don't worry. This step was only to copy these 7 rows of data here, right? So these 7 rows of data right now has unique values, right? AS, EU, AN, AF, OC, NA, and SA. Our job is to manually type the full names of the continents, right? So that is why we removed the duplicates, so that we can only copy this these 7 unique values of the continent codes. Now, to create a manual table, first we need to copy some data. Okay, I mean, you can manually enter the data.
One more doubt.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So this continental, shall we duplicate this particular column and replace that particular AS with the Asia and the Europe that way?
So right now what you're saying is, okay, let me just go back to the review here. So right now you're saying create a duplicate of this particular column. And then what was the next?
Replace the AS with Asia.
You can do that. Yes, you can also do that. You can also do that. Yes, that is also fine. So where you will be using the replace values, where AS will be replaced with Asia, EU will be replaced with Europe, and so on, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can also do that. Yes, absolutely right. But why I am going for this method is that you will learn a couple of other concepts in Power BI. Okay, where you will learn how to manually create a table and also use the merge functions. Okay, yes, you can also opt for this method. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So I'm going to remove this column. Okay.
Anaga, just I didn't get it. Why is she asking to replace the entire?
So basically, what we'll be doing here is we want a third column called as region here. Okay, which has the full names of the continent codes.
Okay.
So right now, what I am doing is the approach I am taking is basically, so first I removed the duplicates here. Okay, from the CC column. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the values present in the CC column. Okay, I'm going to copy this entire table here, right? The copy entire table. So it will be present in this option, guys, here. Okay, in the top left of the, with this particular window here, you have this copy entire table here. Okay, so I'm going to copy this values and manually enter the values for AS, EU, AN, and so on. So that is the method I'm taking, because you get to learn how you can, copy and paste an entire table. What she's saying is, why can't we duplicate this column, right? And basically use the replace values function now on the copy column. Yeah. So that is what she said. That is also absolutely right. Okay. You can try that option also. Okay. There is nothing wrong with that. Okay. So right now we had duplicated, we have the duplicate column here. Okay. I'll remove it. And also, okay, I'll remove it also. Yeah. So basically we had removed the duplicates from the CC column here, right? Remove duplicates. So right now we have 7 unique values in the CC column, right? Excuse me. Now what we can do, we can copy the column now. Okay, we can copy this column here. Okay, so right click on the CC column. Okay, right click on the CC column and select the first option that says copy. So basically it will copy this entire column. Now what we will do, we'll create a new table now. Okay, so how can I create a new table in Power BI where you manually enter the data, or you copy paste the you paste the copied data? So in the home menu, in the new query section, you have this enter data option here, right? So if you see the description, you create a new table by typing or pasting in new content. We have already copied the CC column. So click on the option that says enter data. Okay. So in enter data, you can create a table on your own, right? You need not import or you need not connect to a different data set. Here you will be able to create your own data set. Okay, so right now you have this window here. Okay, so click on the gray row here, right? In the first row here, right click and select paste. Okay, so here after you paste it, Power BI is providing a notification that says the first row of the data you pasted has been promoted to column headers. That is what we wanted also, right? Because CC is the column header. So automatically it has promoted the CC as the column header. That's fine. That's fine. Let us close this because that is the correct, the correct way of doing it, right? So let us close this. Now here we have pasted the, the CC column here that we just copied. Now all we need to do is create a new column called as region and type the full names of the continent names. Okay, so click on the plus button here that says insert column and double click on the column 1 and rename it as region. Okay, and rename it as region. Now here we should manually enter the values for these continent codes. So double click on the first row of the region column. AS is Asia. Then press enter on the keyboard. It will take you to the next row. So EU is Europe. AN is Antarctica. AF is Africa. OC is Oceania. Oceania is nothing but the Australian continent. Okay, so the official name of the Australian continent is Oceania. Okay, NA is North America. SA is South America. Okay, so after we manually type in the values, you also have a option to provide a name for the table that we are creating now. Okay, so we are creating a table now. So you have an option to provide a name for the table. So let us name this as region space names. Okay, because we have manually entered the names of the regions, or basically technically speaking the continents, right? So let us name this table as region names. Okay, and click on OK. So that new table will be created now here. Okay, so right now we have the CC column that we just copied and the respective full names. Okay, and the respective full names. So now we can come back to the codes data set now. Okay, we can come back to the codes data set now, and we can basically remove the option that says remove duplicates now. Okay, we can remove it from the applied steps so that we get back the or we get back all the rows now. Okay, now what we need to do now is merge codes data set with region names so that we borrow the region column and place it in the codes data set. Okay, so right now codes data set has only 2 columns now, the pound symbol, the hash column and the CC column. So first step is to basically have the region column present in the region names table and place it in the codes table here. Okay. So here we will be using the merge queries function now. Okay. So basically we'll be using the merge queries function to combine codes dataset with region names in order to borrow the region column and place it in the codes dataset. Okay, so that is the purpose of using the merge queries. If you want to borrow a particular column present in one table and place it in another table, you will use the merge queries function. But you need to make sure that these the tables you are combining has matching columns. Okay, has matching columns. Okay, so now the next step is to combine the information from the region names, right, and the codes dataset now. Okay, we need to merge codes dataset and region names table. Based on which column? Can anyone tell me which column we can use now as the matching column?
CC.
Or
The
CC,
CC one.
continental code.
Exactly, CC, right, or the continent code. So based on the continent code as the matching column, we'll be basically borrowing the region column now. So AS is Asia. So wherever AS is present in the codes dataset, the region table will say Asia. Wherever in whichever row EU is present in the CC column, Europe will Europe will be present in the region table. Now for this we will use the merge queries option now. Okay, we'll use the merge queries option. Okay, guys, let us do one thing. Okay, because before we proceed with the merge queries option, there are different kinds of join, right? I'm sure you must have heard about the different kinds of join, namely the left join, right join, outer join, left anti-join, right anti-join, full outer join. If you have not heard about these terms, don't worry, I will go through all of these different types of join one by one. Okay, and that will take a little bit of time. So what we can do, we can stop for today. Okay, so when we reconvene again tomorrow at 7 o'clock, first I will teach you the different types of joins there are in Power BI, right? What are the different types of join you can perform in Power BI, and then we will go ahead with merging the data sets. Okay, so first we will merge codes dataset with region names, and then after we get the region column in codes dataset, we'll merge codes dataset with dim region. Okay, so we'll be using the merge queries quite often. Okay, so in while creating the dimension tables and the central table, we will be using the merge queries function, quite often. Okay, so we have already used the append queries function, but we had not used the merge queries function. And in this part of the course, we will be using the merge queries function, quite often. Okay. So let us stop for today and reconvene again tomorrow at 7:15 a.m. Okay, so we will pick up where we left off today. Okay, so where first I will teach you the different types of join, and then we can go ahead and merge the files. Okay, so that we get the desired result, or we'll so that we create the dimension tables and the central table. Okay, okay everyone. After tomorrow's class, I will share the presentation, okay, because I still have a couple of slides left in the presentation. So after tomorrow's session, I will share the presentation in the groups and also with the Geeklearn team, so that you guys can access in the learning.